We are live, and hello everyone, and welcome as ever to our monthly member Q&A, our being the Alliance of Independent Authors. And I'm here with our wonderful outreach manager, Michael La Ronn. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Orna. Happy March.
Yeah, here we are. Can you believe it? Last month of the first quarter already.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I must say, since getting back from COVID kind of quiet into more normal comings and goings, the weeks are just passing in a blur. I need to kind of tap into activity again. How are things with you?
Yeah, same here. Things are just flying by, but it's been a good year so far. So just knock on wood. Hopefully, it continues that way.
That's great. Okay. Well, as ever, we are fully aware of world events where you are and where we are, but we are writers and writers write, and we are publishers and publishers publish. So we welcome you to this Q&A where we discuss all things self-publishing, and our members send us their most pressing self-publishing questions each month, and we select the ones that we feel are most helpful to most people, or ones that we haven't come across before that are new or unusual. So Michael is the man with the questions. Let's have the first one, shall we?
All right. First question is from. Had a little pause there. Sorry about that. First question is from Denise. And I'm going to summarize Denise's question. The gist of the question is, at what point, if you're a new aspiring writer, at what point should you set up a publishing company?
Okay, and by that I assume she means the full incorporating and all of
Correct.
that, as opposed to being a freelance author. I would say it's not something to worry about at the start at all. You're perfectly covered for most of your indeed for all of your activities as a sole trader, is what we call it here in the UK. What's the most commonly used term in the US?
Sole proprietor
Sole
or
proprietor,
just individual in the United States.
individual, as opposed to a corporation, right?
Correct. Or
And
a limited liability company too.
or a limited liability company. Yes, so
Mm.
that's similar sort of terminology. Not surprising because our legal systems grew out of each other. But yeah, here in the US, I don't even know where I am. Here in the UK, it's a sole trader generally speaking, and that's absolutely fine and covers you for all your activities. The most important thing for you at the beginning is to get on top of what it takes to be a writer and a publisher together. And until you are in such a situation where you are selling a significant number of books, you don't really need to worry about this. Unless there are exceptions, and I know Michael, wearing his legal hat, will be coming in with maybe a slightly different perspective on this. If you write books that might land you in any sort of legal libel arena, then you might want to incorporate for protection purposes. And there are some other exceptions to that. But if you are, doing the general sort of writing that 90% of writers do, then at the beginning, your structure is not the most important thing. The most important thing is you developing a rhythm to your day and to your processes, and understanding what's involved and what kind of indie author you want to be, because there are lots of different ways to do this. And in the creator economy now, the ways in which you can make money from your writing and from your books is just expanding all the time. So until you've kind of settled into your own way of doing things, that's the time, I think, at which you begin to give this structure business some serious consideration. So I will tell you that I was self-publishing, I think, for 6 or 7 years before taking the leap across into incorporation. And there are lots of reasons why you might hold back, financial and otherwise. So yeah, that will be my take on it. What do you think, Michael?
I would say I agree generally with your advice, Orna. I would say if I had to go back and do things again, I probably would have started my publishing business sooner. Probably on day one, just so at least for ISBNs here in the United States, you've got it. If you buy them, if you buy a block of them, you kind of have to commit to commit to whatever name you're going to register them in. So I think I would have been more intentional about naming my company in the beginning. I wasn't. I kind of picked a terrible name. So the sooner you figure all that out, I think the better. But to Orna's point, you don't have to figure that out right away. There was something else you said that I wanted to make sure I called out. Um, whether I don't know how it works in the UK, but it actually doesn't matter whether you're publishing under a individual or a corporation or an LLC. You actually have no legal protection, even if you do commit libel. So even if you are sued, you can still be sued personally. So there's really not much protection. Choosing your legal entity um, wouldn't be my first concern if you were concerned about that. The big thing is just don't write libel in the first place,
Well, absolutely, yes.
and you'll be okay.
Definitely. And we have some tips on that if you want to
Yeah.
search those out in our self-publishing advice center about how to avoid being libelous. That's an interesting thing because I think there may be a difference in UK
Hmm.
and US law, because certainly that was always something that was mentioned to us as a reason
Okay.
why you might. But again, these things change, and I'm certainly open to. We will check that and see what is the situation in our various global territories around the world,
Yeah.
and report back on that. But as Michael says, you don't want to end up in libel court anyhow, and so
Exactly.
the thing to do is to avoid that. And it's not really, so it's a kind of a side issue, really, on the incorporation thing. So yeah, I guess our summary would be, if you know right from the start what your business model is, how you're about, what you want to call yourself, and all of those things. If you've got those kind of ducks in a row, off you go. But if you're at the, as 90% of authors are at the start, if you're at the, I don't really know what I'm doing here, and
Hmm.
you're making it up as you go along, and you're still in a state of kind of confusion, then it's much easier to make your mistakes as a sole trader, and then later on, when you're a little bit more sound of foot, then you'd make the change.
Yeah, you're right. It's much easier when you're a sole trader and you've only got a handful of books to your name. When you're like me and you've got like 80 books, then
Yeah,
it gets
stop
a lot harder. It's a lot harder to make changes. So the more books you publish, the harder it gets. So that's why you
Definitely.
you want to do it as soon as you can, but don't feel like you have to do it right away.
Yeah, that is a very good point, because yeah, that does depend. When I made that switch, it was when I thought, okay, now we're going to start racking up the titles here. So yeah, you want to get it in line.
All right.
Okay,
So
next
our
question.
next question is from Doug. And Doug's question is a really interesting one. So I'm going to summarize it and paraphrase it. But let's just say that you are completely brand new. Like you have not done anything as an aspiring author. The only thing you have in your brain is this idea to write and publish and start walking down this path of becoming an indie author. What should be your first steps?
I would say, obviously, writing every day. That's what, if you can't do every day, then do absolutely write every moment you possibly can, and set up an author website. It can be very simple, but get your domain name, begin to think of yourself as an author, and put a sign up. An email sign up form on that website. And I think that those two things, until you actually have a book, there's not a lot else to do. You can, if you want, start, if you, particularly if you enjoy it, you can start some social media activity around the topic of your book. So you begin to attract some readers. But to be honest, you're not going to attract many people unless your social posts are stellar and hugely interesting. Same goes for blogs. You're not really going to attract people until you have some books under your belt. And so there's not a lot of point in putting a huge amount of time into marketing at the beginning, I would say. And again, people's advice vary on this, um, eh, but do begin the rhythm Again, I spoke about rhythm. It's probably the thing I'm thinking about an awful lot at the moment. The rhythm and the process of writing and publishing is served by you thinking about the marketing at this point. Who is my ideal reader? How are they going to find me when I do have this book written and published? Who, where are they online? Go where they are, start hanging out there, start listening. So more about listening than producing words or feeling the obligation to join in the conversation, but just beginning to get a sense of what genre you are writing in, and so on. So yeah, I would say that's the bare minimum startup. What do you think?
Yeah, those are good steps. My first step would be avoiding scams and just educating myself. I would be concerned about taking the wrong first steps because I think it's easy when you're that new. Um, you can be pretty vulnerable, and because you don't know what you don't know, it can be really easy to take the wrong advice or listen to someone who maybe doesn't have the expertise that you're looking for or has the expertise in the wrong area because you don't really know who to trust. And when I say trust, I don't mean there is the scam part of it, but also just trust in terms of who should you be listening to? Because again, like I said, you don't know what you don't know. Like if I could go back to 2014, 2012 when I started, the advice I would choose to follow would be probably have been a lot different. So, avoiding misinformation, I think is or bad information, I think would be my first step. And joining an organization like ALLi, I think would be a high priority. But the listener's already done that, so no
Yeah.
issues there. I think the second thing I would focus on is I would also focus on the fundamentals. So, as Orna alluded to, writing to me is a fundamental, but even more fundamental to that is I would focus on mastering whatever writing app you've chosen. So if you are a Microsoft Word person, take a Microsoft Word course. If you're a Scrivener person, take a Scrivener course. Why do I say that? The reason I say that is because the sooner you can find that writing app that fits you like a glove, you'll be more productive. Because I remember when I first started writing, I was using Microsoft Word, and God bless the people at Microsoft, but I just felt like I was beating my head against the computer every single time I sat down to write, to the point where it wasn't even fun anymore. And I remember finding Scrivener, and I just remember being so energized. And every time I sat down, I had a lot more fun and I got a lot more words in because I found a writing app that fit me. So if you can find that writing app, and maybe it means you're going to have to experiment a little bit, all that's fine. But find that writing app, master it, and it'll pay off dividends in the long term of your career.
Yes, absolutely brilliant tip. And as ever, when you're starting off, you're not going to know without trying. So I
Mhm.
think the most important thing when you're setting out is to have an attitude of exploration and experiment and independence. So you don't believe everything you're told. And, lots and lots of authors are online giving advice that isn't very good sometimes because not because they're trying to put you off or anything, simply because they assume that what worked for them in their genre is going to work for you in yours. And there's such variety in how we are indie authors that it's very difficult for one author to recommend to another. There are certain core things that are there, but yeah, we have the book, How to Choose a Self-Publishing Service. And so in terms of avoiding bad advice and in terms of knowing how to evaluate any service and see whether it is of use to you, that book is very valuable. And we'll put the title in the show notes for the podcast on Friday. But yeah, so the attitude and approach you take to this is the thing that's going to shortcut stuff for you more than anything else. So, being independent minded, it's there. We're indie authors. That means we don't jump into anything. We bide our time, we do our research, we look and see, and we go back to ourselves all the time as the arbiter of what's right for us. And yeah, it's a very exciting time to be coming into writing and authorship. So yeah, wish you good luck. Keep us posted.
Yeah, just remember it's not too late. You know, there's always that undercurrent going through our community of people that are like, "Ah, if only I could have been publishing in 2013 or 2012." There's so many more resources available now than there ever was 10 years ago. So never feel like you're late. You're now is the best time to write, and that is what it is.
Absolutely, that's a really good point. I'm doing the looking back over 10 years of ALLi at the moment for our 10th anniversary, and it's really interesting to see how many periods there were where people thought they were kind of golden ages. So at the
Mhm.
beginning, where you could just be instantly up the charts if you had any sort of a decent book at all, or when KU came in first, or people look
Yeah.
back to these as if only I had been around then. But actually, they're all the outliers. They're all the tricksy things. That's just luck and being in the right place at the right time. What the advice we're giving here and throughout ALLi and Michael's own author Level Up is the stuff that's going to stand to you all the way through in 10 years' time. These are the things that always published a book and always got a book to its readers. And it hasn't changed. The tools have changed and things are getting easier and easier and more expansive. Readers are getting more used to buying from authors. All of that is great. But the challenges are actually exactly what they were 400 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next question is from Jeremy, and the question is, for hybrid authors interested in querying agents, do you know where to find some of the best places to find agents?
Yeah, so I suppose the short answer to this is, you know, an agent is somebody that you hire when you have something to sell. So most agents are not interested in hybrid arrangements. They need to be able to sell all your rights to one buyer. Yeah, I'm speaking in the main. Loads of agents are not particularly interested in self-publishing authors. So until you have proven yourself and you're selling well, at which time the agents start coming to you, so you don't have to worry about it. So they are different pathways when you're starting out. They come together later on. Later on, you can sell rights to publishers, and agents are interested in representing you, and to overseas markets and all sorts of different rights sales. But at the beginning, you won't find an agent to take you on, and that search is going to be I mean, I shouldn't say you definitely won't, but you 99.999% won't, because an agent needs to know that they're going to make money from you. That's what an agent does. They represent you and take a percentage of your income. So if you don't have income, if they can't see income there in front of them. So if you by some chance have written an absolutely extraordinary book that's right in the heart of something that's very, very topical and hot at the moment, and you happen to get that book in front of an agent, and sending them your manuscript is by no means a guarantee of that. If that all went well, you could be the outlier that made a success, the literary lottery, the golden ticket. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
Sorry, yeah, just finishing off there and
Mhm.
let you in. We don't recommend that approach. Sorry, do you want to hop in,
No,
Michael?
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I
No
was just
problem.
gonna say, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and uh, we don't have any resources we could point you to find an agent, as we're an organization advocating for self-published members. So, best of luck in that journey.
Yeah, there is the writers market in the US and the Writers and Artists Yearbook in the UK, and they are there's a list of agents there. But hand on heart, do I want to recommend you to go off and start writing to those agents? I do not. You're wasting your time
Yeah, and there's
unless unless
agree.
yeah, unless you've already got an income source that you can guarantee them.
And just remember, I keep beating this horse, and somebody will listen one day. But if you want to be a hybrid author, meaning you're an author that has traditionally published work and self published work, just remember there are do not compete clauses in contracts that you have to be aware of, and that could hamstring your production. So if you want to get one book traditionally published, but you want to stay indie, if you're not careful, you won't be able to do that. So just caution with contracts out there.
Yes, both the self-publishing agreement, if you have signed a hybrid publishing arrangement, that is actually a self-publishing service. It's not really a publisher. So be very careful about the rights clauses in those self-publishing agreements. And similarly, if you were to find a trade publisher who's to take on your book, be very careful about what rights you actually give them, both in terms of territory, what area of the world, and also in terms of what format you're actually licensing. So it's very tricky, and it's the old way. It was the only way when I started writing. There was no other way. But I'm self-publishing now because it's not a very creative way. A lot of energy goes into asking people to do things for you that they're not going to do. They don't have time to do. They're too busy to do, etc., etc. So yeah, as Michael says, we are the alliance of independent authors, and self-publishing is primary for us.
Yes. All right. Next question is from Yolanda. And Yolanda has just finished the last edit of her novel and intends to send out advanced reader copies. First part of her question is, how do you make advanced reader copies, and how do you send them out?
Well, there are lots of different services who will manage that for you. I personally use BookFunnel, but people use different ways of doing it. I can highly recommend BookFunnel as a service, and ALLi's ARCs are also handled there. Who do you use, Michael?
I use BookFunnel as well, but am very familiar with Story Origin and Book Sirens.
Yes, they
And
all
Booksprout,
three.
I think, is another one. So
Booksprout is also great. All of those are closely connected to ALLi. I think a number of them are our partner members, and we
mhm.
can highly recommend all of them. So what you essentially need to do is just put your copy of your book together. If you've done the actual compilation yourself, you'll have your vellum or whatever, and you print off your PDF usually for ARCs, and use one of these services to distribute it. You'll get a link which your ARC reader can go to take it down. And yeah, it's not a terribly complicated process. It's just a matter of getting stuck in. Any tips, Michael?
Yeah, everything you said was great. I also like to include EPUB just in case somebody wants to read it on their device, like a phone or a tablet. But I also think the big thing with communicating ARCs is communicating the ARCs. So make sure you set expectations when you go off and find people. Just let them know the need by date, and I like to reverse engineer that need by date. So like if you need the book, if you need the feedback by April 1st, don't give the readers the feedback by April 1st because life happens. Inevitably, if you send an ARC out to 5 people, probably only 3 will get it back to you, and that's just life. So if you need it by April 1st, I would maybe set your deadline for like March 15th. and and I would also make sure that you send several emails. So send the email with the ARC, and then send the email, a follow-up email a couple of days later just to make sure everybody got it, and then send another email about halfway through the campaign, and then send another email probably right before the deadline, and then you'll know who you get the book back from. But with an ARC, I mean, typically you need a book published so that people can send a review to. So, if you haven't published the book yet, you might be putting the cart a little bit before the horse. Um, but there's no harm in it. You'll just have to make sure that if you don't have the book published, you're going to have to follow up with people again when the book is published. And the more you have to follow up with people, the more time goes by, the less likely that they are to post the review. So maybe just keep that in mind. You may want to hold on to that just a little bit until you're closer to publishing the book.
Yeah, I agree. I would recommend that actually, because I've seen people fall off that often, and it's organized people who are well organized in advance. But yeah,
Mhm.
I think you want to be able to send them to a live link where they can straight away. It's good to line them up for that date, and very close to your publishing date, line them up so that when the book is out, you can quickly get some reviews on it.
Yep, agree. And then the second part of the question is, should I register the copyright and ISBN before I send out my ARCs?
Your copyright is yours from the moment you started writing the book. US copyright law is the US the only territory, and to our knowledge, where you have to register copyright now for it to have legal standing. Should there be a query or a case brought against it. So, in terms of getting your ISBNs in order, I would say yes, and get your ISBNs in order at the start. Register your copyright if that's what you're going to do. There is no harm at all in having it in advance. If you're asking that question because you think if you don't register your copyright, you're going to be hit by plagiarism or piracy or something like that, copyright's a passive law. It's not, if I register my copyright, then these people that I'm trusting with my brand new shiny arcs can't run away with my stuff. And if I'm registered, I'm protected. If I'm not registered, I'm not protected. It isn't like that. So, ARC readers, people who volunteer to read your work and review it, are highly unlikely to be plagiarists or pirates. And most, as a beginner author, a lot of beginner authors think a lot about protection and stopping people from taking their work. But the real challenge you have as an author starting out is obscurity. Nobody's going to notice your book, and it's going to take some time for you to be known for what you do. And so you've got to trust your ARC readers. And so, yeah, get everything lined up, get everything sorted, because they're kind of admin tasks, and it's good to have them out of the way before the excitement of your launch and everything else takes over. But don't do it because you fear that if you don't, your copyright's not protected. It is.
Yep, very good. The next question is from John. Should I have a barcode with a set price or a generic 9,000 barcode? Hopefully you know the answer to that, Orna.
Yeah, I'm not sure what a generic 9,000 barcode is, but if you are publishing POD, print on demand, with Amazon KDP Print and Ingram Spark, which we recommend. We recommend particularly at the beginning for print, until you're absolutely sure that your book is settled and it's what's in it and all of that kind of thing. There's no need for short runs, and again, unless you have a distribution outlet for any sort of short run that you would do. POD is fantastic because the reader buys the book, and the book is printed to demand. Print on demand, what it says on the tin. So in that case, you don't need to worry about the barcodes. The services will look after your barcodes for you, and that's all fine. If you're doing a short run, then you may well, depending on why you're doing it and who your outlet is and whether they have pricing involved and they want the recommended pricing on the book and all of that, you may have to do it. But this is not so much a question for you. Your book designer should be able to help you with all of this. If it is an experienced book designer who's used to doing print covers, and they will know the barcode requirements. So work closely with them, depending on your needs and why, how you're distributing it. That's really at the core of this question.
Yeah, if you need a barcode, somebody's going to tell you that you need a barcode. That's essentially,
It's a
I
good
think,
way to think about it. Yeah.
yeah, because I've never had to use one, but I've never done offset printing, so
Exactly.
that's a really good answer. I didn't even know that. I thought maybe there was some reason out there I needed to have a barcode, but
No,
I don't have to worry about it.
you don't if you're POD. Another reason, POD was the best thing that ever happened to authors and print books, because I did a print run. I self-published before POD, and I had that kind of all the books up in the spare bedroom under the bed and everywhere else. And
Oh, boy.
the distribution headache and the invoicing, the distributor and the returns coming back and all of that. Absolutely so time consuming. You basically need somebody to do all the admin of that. So print on demand is just amazing. And I think, yeah, it's the indie author gods definitely deserve thanks for that one.
All right. Next question is just a reminder question, Orna. We had 2 people ask this month, where can you find your Ingram Spark discount code?
Yeah, you log in to the member zone and you go to the discounts and deals page, and it is there. It's changed at the end of every month. So you'll need to log in again next month. You get 5 uses each month of the code. So yeah, that's where you'll find it. And while you're there, have a look around at the other discounts and deals which our partner members are providing for our author members as well. There's lots of good stuff in there, and it's a good place to also find cost effective services of all kinds, reasonably priced editors and designers, and our partner members are all approved and vetted by ALLi, so you can be sure that they are used to working with indie authors and they are supportive of indie authors. And yeah, so hop in for your code and maybe you'll come out with some other nice discounts too.
All right. Next question is from Caroline. Just need to read her question here, wrap my head around it. Okay. Carolyn's question is, what is the best way to find the right cover designer quickly?
Don't do anything quickly. And definitely don't do your book cover quickly.
And let me clarify. The reason
Okay.
Carolyn asked that is because she's a new member to ALLi and is a little overwhelmed by all the different resources we offer, and just is concerned that she might have to spend a lot of time wading through resources.
Quickly in that sense. So yes, time. I get it. Great. I thought it was like you had set a deadline. You were rushing against the clock
Yes.
trying to produce your first book cover, which we wouldn't recommend because you need time to think about these things and to find the right person. So from our perspective, again, I would refer you to our partner members. We have a number of really good book cover designers used to working with indie authors, and your designer interviewing 2 or 3 at least designers, maybe even more, having a discussion with them, talking to them about how they do things, and working out the brief for them. That is the job that you have to do. So in terms of narrowing down the number of people that are out there, because there are countless numbers of designers on the internet, in a sense, we've done that job by vetting and approving these people that you can trust. So we would recommend that you have a look through those and see how you get on, and you should find somebody who's going to be able to make a cover. There is there's an article on the Self-Publishing Advice Centre about how to commission a designer. And also, I know, Michael, your 150 questions goes quite deeply into this, the ALLi guidebook, all of which are free to members, the ebook versions. You can just download them from the publications page in the member zone again. Take a look at that section. So all the ALLi guides are divided into editorial, design, production, distribution, and so on. They're designed in that way so you can hop to the part of the process that you're currently in and ignore the rest. So, you can read the guidebooks from start to finish and then go back if you want to, but you can also just jump in where you're at and kind of go from there. So all of the guidebooks will have a design section, so you can read what I have to say about commissioning a designer and how to choose a good one, and what Michael has to say as well. Also, John has a section in his book about choosing a self-publishing service. So that is the work of maybe 90 minutes to read those chapters and the post on the Self-Publishing Advice Centre, and from there you should have a clear pathway of the next steps to take.
Yeah. And I would also just figure out what your budget is. So just do a quick Google search, or even look at the partner members, or the folks in our directories, service rating directory that Orna mentioned. Look there and just figure out what the average price is, and then figure out what your budget is. That's going to help you find the designer you can afford to begin with. So if you're really on a budget, one of your options is to go with a pre-made cover. That is a viable choice. Depends on how much you've got, but those tend to be a lot cheaper than your traditional designs, and that is an option. If you've got more money and you can pay for something more professional, then definitely do that and hire a designer. The only thing you got to keep in mind is what kind of calendar the designer has. So there are some designers out there that it can take months just for them to even get around to designing your book. And if you've got that kind of time to wait, that's great. Over the long term, that's not really sustainable. If you want to write, more than a couple of books a year, you really can't afford to wait 6 months for a designer. That's my opinion, but that's another thing you got to keep in mind. But yeah, if you wanted to keep it simple, I would just start with the service ratings directory. Start there. If all fails, ask other authors in your genre, who they're using, and that should get you a pretty sizable list of designers that you can wade through pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the pre-made option, as you say, is a very good option, and particularly in certain genres. So, with nonfiction and stuff like that, it's fine. It's 100% fine. Pre-mades work really well. So yeah, you'll figure it out. The thing is that it is overwhelming. I think self-publishing is overwhelming if you think about everything all at once. But if you break it down across the 7 stages and you only focus on that stage while you're in it and learn, go in there again with that attitude of exploration and experiment and learning, so that it's not just on your first time, you're not just doing the thing, making it happen, you're also learning what works best for you. Then second time out, it becomes easier. And third time, it actually is easy. And after that, usually at this point, I give very little thought to the actual process of putting the book together. It just kind of happens. It's very low down on the list of what I'm spending time thinking about. I'm spending much more time thinking about the marketing end of things and how this book is going to reach readers and stuff. But at the beginning, that production, all these production questions and distribution questions are very live, and it just does take a little bit of time to grapple with them, but one step at a time is the way to do it.
I agree. I love what you just said. I spend almost no time thinking about the formatting or layout or any of the technical stuff anymore. Like you, it's almost all exclusively spent marketing, and it kind of goes back to that one of the first questions we had, Orna, of what are the first steps. Mastering that tool and getting an understanding of the process, I think, is everything. So,
and that takes time.
it does.
That kind of comes back to my kind of don't try to do anything too quickly. These things take time, and there are some shortcuts, and we offer those, and authors will help you hugely with that. Keep talking to people on the ALLi forum and in other author groups. You will get useful shortcuts, but you won't get anything that takes away the fact that good books take time.
Yes. And our final question for this month, Orna, is from Caitlin. And Caitlin she said she's done 8 editions of a book using a pen name. She wants to start using her real name, but does not want to lose traction or loyalty. Any suggestions on how to make this transition? So from a pen name to a real name.
Unusual
Yeah,
transition. So,
that's
and did you
interesting.
say 8 editions of a book? Does that mean
Yeah,
8 books in
I,
a series, maybe? Or
yeah, I'm not quite sure what she means there. It says she
okay.
just says she has 8 editions of a book.
Oh, the book has come out again and again. I am guessing in
Yeah.
8 editions over time, and now she wants to actually get her name. I would you can so you're going to have 2 things here. First of all, you're going to have the readers and the people you want to bring with you, and then you're going to have the distribution services and so on, and depending on who you're using and how you get your books out into the world and all of that. So, the actual physicality of the change is pretty easy. You can just put your own name, and you can put previously writing as, and you can put your author name in there as well, and put that on your cover, put that in all the information, in the metadata, in everything related to the book, so that the book continues to show up when because a lot of people won't know, and will never know, actually, that you've made this change. They'll still be referring to you by the first name for a decade to come. So just make sure that you use the two of them, certainly for a long transition period. Then if you're going to you're going to have issues around, if it's a new author name, that takes you into it as a new author in places like Amazon KDP. And if you want to carry over old reviews and stuff, you're going to have to get into conversations with their support desk and stuff about that. So it's not something that's done lightly, but I'm quite sure you have good reasons for wanting to do it at this point in the game. So I think the good thing is that it can be done. And there is no great reason why you should lose readers so long as you don't want to get rid of the old name completely.
Yeah, I'm actually going through this in some respects because I've got a pen name that I'm retiring. So I have a pen name that I used for urban fantasy, and I'm gonna retire that name and pull it under my Michael La Ronn name. And it's kind of similar to Caitlin's issue in that I've got, reviews, I've got readers who know me under one name, and now I've got to communicate to them that I have a new name. So there's the technical part of it, and the technical part of it is actually quite easy. It's unpublish the book, get a new ISBN, make sure the book is on the website of my new pen name, make sure that I regenerate all of my books to read links and all of that stuff. And yeah, that's the cover, like Orna mentioned. That's all the technical stuff. That's not too bad. The other part of it is just making sure you communicate with your readers. So making sure, like Orna mentioned, that you're putting in your book description, previously writing as, making sure you communicate with your email lists, making sure you communicate on social media, making sure you continue to communicate it, because there's always going to be someone that says, "Oh, I remember you under ML McKnight." No, no, now it's Michael La Ronn, right? So you may need to run advertising. There's just I would if you can do it, I would just take a look at your entire platform, meaning every area of your website, your email list, your email signature, your Facebook pages, your Pinterest, your TikTok, whatever. Do an end-to-end review of your platform and come up with a plan to replace stuff if you want to use that. Because what's going to happen is you're going to make the transition, and then you're going to, oh, I forgot about that thing, that I forgot to change my name over there. So it'll probably take you some time to transition everything, but if you just look holistically at your platform, it'll make it a lot easier. Because yeah, this pen name retirement that I'm doing, it's a massive undertaking. I didn't really appreciate how massive it was until I got halfway through it, and then I'm like, oh crap, there's a bunch of stuff I have to do.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and
Mhm.
it's something. I think that brings me to the question for this particular author in particular. If you've had 8 editions of this book, it's a much loved book, and it's going back a long time. So I'm guessing that you are distributing through bookstores as well, and that that you had a traditional. This book may have started out in trad world, and that adds, that's Michael's complexity plus a whole other big enormous layer of complexity with
Mhm.
booksellers and bookshops and all of that. So I would ask you, are you absolutely sure you want to do this? And I'm figuring you probably sorted that out and you absolutely do, which is great. If you do, go ahead, understanding all the things that we've said and that you are giving yourself lots and lots of work and you're happy with that, that's fine. But if you can live happily with it, I'd really say stay where you are. You know, if it's just an idea, oh, I'd like now to kind of go out there. You may have professional reasons why you may operate under your own name in another sphere, and it would be good for you to have the book in your own name. You may think that, but people are very used to the idea that authors use pen names, and they're not a bit put off by that, you know. So I have a dual identity, and I just say, oh, that's my work name, that's my writing name, or whatever my real name is, blah blah blah. And you know, I've done speaking gigs as me, and given books under different pen names. So that can be done, and you might want to think about whether that might be a better option for you with less work and less confusion. It's the readers I'm worried about, and the influencers, the booksellers, the librarians. You know, the books have there's a massive infrastructure underlying books. They go out into the wide world, and we kind of forget about them when they're gone. But you know, making those changes gives a lot of people a lot of headaches.
Agree. Agree. I think it's a good way to end it. So those are all of our questions for the month, Orna.
Okay, great. So that's March. And if you have questions now that you'd like to send through to us, then we will have the link for that in the show notes as ever. And yeah, until next time, we'll be back as we have no shift around next month. We're back at the usual time, aren't we, Michael? Yeah, next month is London Book Fair, so things are a little bit moving pieces in ALLi. But I think this we're back at the usual time, which is the second Tuesday of the month at midday UK time, and some god awful time where Michael is.
Yeah, like 5 o'clock in the morning. It's
Oh,
okay.
he's an early bird.
Yes.
So yes, we will see you then. And until then, happy writing and happy publishing. Bye
Take
bye.
care, everyone.